Hi everyone, and welcome back to Brief Recaps. Today, I'm going to recap and explain to you a sci-fi fantasy, thriller, and mystery film called Powder, released in the year 1996. A number of years ago, during a stormy night at the medical center, there was an unexpected emergency. The patient happens to be a woman who is pregnant. After a while, the physician finally informs her husband that she has passed away and that although their child is still alive, he has some anomalies. The infant appears to have no pigmentation at all, which is a characteristic of the condition known as albinism. Greg, the baby's father, breaks down in tears and denies the baby before leaving the hospital. Moving further, old Mr. Reed was discovered dead in his home the previous day, and the next day, the sheriff of the county, Doug, along with his deputies, have arrived there to investigate. However, there is a problem. The old man's grandson, who lives with him and did not report his passing, is hiding in the basement and refusing to come out. Sheriff Doug is unable to convince him to come out, so he asks Miss Jessie Caldwell, who is in charge of the Central Boys State House, for assistance. However, he warns her that people say the boy is odd. Within the dimly lit cellar, Sheriff Doug reassures the young kid that he does not need to worry about anything because his grandfather passed away from natural causes. In the meantime, Jessie makes an attempt to strike up a discussion with the youngster, but he does not respond to her. In the end, he gives his response, which is that his name is Powder. When she inquires about his real name, he tells her that his birth name is Jeremy Reed. Jessie is in awe of his exceptional intellect, despite the fact that he has never received any official education and has had little contact with the outside world, other than through the many books he has read and his grandparents, both of whom have now passed away. He affirms that his grandmother taught him at home up until the time of her passing, and he has kept all of the textbooks and other materials that she used to teach him. She flips over to a random page in Moby Dick, and he recites the passage from memory. It has come to light that Jeremy is in fact Greg's kid. However, Greg abandoned him at the hospital shortly after his birth, and Jeremy's grandparents have been keeping his existence a secret ever since. Jessie coaxes him out of the house, assuring him that she would look after him, and then she takes him to Central. When they arrive at Central, Jessie reassures him that he had nothing to worry about and helped him go inside. During the course of their dinner, Jeremy chose to sit by himself as the other boys observe him in silence. He is being called a vampire by John and his bunch of other bullies when they arrive at his table. He gives Jeremy the order to press the spoon to his nose. All of a sudden, Jeremy gathers everyone's spoons together with his facial expressions, and everyone and everything comes to a complete and total halt. Later on, Jessie makes an appointment for Jeremy to have a checkup and a physical examination. The doctor determines that Jeremy is healthy, with the exception that he does not have any body hair, which is a condition that is not all that unusual. Jessie inquires as to whether or not he is interested in attending school, and he responds by stating that he needs his contact lenses in order to see. While he is in school, every single student can be seen staring at him. Lindsay, a student who is seated close to him and who grins at him during the entirety of the lesson, draws the attention of Mr. Ripley, who is the teacher. He uses the two of them as examples throughout the conversation. During an experiment with an apparatus that he refers to as Jacob's Ladder, an electric jolt from the apparatus jerks Jeremy out of his seat, suspends him in the air, and causes electric waves to roll through him like thunder. Lindsay seeks assistance from Mr. Ripley by calling him. Mr. Ripley uses a wooden table to smash the instrument, sending Jeremy tumbling to the floor amidst gasps of shock and fear from the other students in the classroom. Ripley, in an effort to make sense of the event, kneels by Jeremy's side and watches the smoke coming from his body. At the hospital, the sheriff and the doctor are incredulous after hearing Mr. Ripley's account. He tells them that he has never seen anything of this nature before and that there is no scientific explanation for it. The physician verifies that Jeremy is well and in good spirits, with no visible wounds on him other than an abnormal heart rate. During the course of the conversation, a nurse arrives to retrieve the attending physician. It would appear that Jeremy is nowhere to be found around the hospital, and no one is aware of how he had left. When Jeremy comes across Lindsay, the search operation is still proceeding, and he is on his way out of the area. She is relieved to learn that he is in good health and unharmed. Jeremy plays with her dog while also carrying on a discussion with her. He informs her that he despises it when people look at him in public places, and then proceeds to observe her neighbors peeping through their windows. She obliges him by describing the path leading to the interstate road and urges him to make haste before the search team finds him and takes him away to solitary confinement. He gives her a friendly smile before leaving. At the train tracks, Sheriff Doug and Deputy Harley catch up with Jeremy and try to convince him to proceed calmly rather than aggressively. Jeremy, however, begs to be allowed to go home, but eventually follows the sheriff. Back at the Central Boys' house, Jessie informs him that the results of his IQ test have been released and that several state leaders, as well as Mr. Ripley, would like to visit him regarding that. In the conference room, An executive tries to start a conversation with Jeremy while telling him that his personality is so exceptional that his IQ level has never been seen by mankind before. In the midst of Jeremy's rage over the fact that they are attempting to use him as a subject in an experiment and may accuse him of being dishonest due to the results of the IQ test, the hands of everyone's wristwatches begin to spin erratically. He reiterates his request to leave, and then he exits the room. The Central Boys, Sheriff Doug and Deputy Harley, are currently enjoying a camping trip. John sneaks up on Jeremy while the others are out hunting and surprises him with a rifle. His pal Mitch, who is also scared, advises him to stop in case the gun goes off. At that precise moment, a shot can be heard ringing out throughout the forest. As Jeremy, John, and Mitch run toward the sound, they come across the other boys and Deputy Harley, also racing in the direction of the deer that the deputy shot at. While the deer is writhing in anguish, Deputy Harley is being held down by Jeremy, who also holds the deer down and has tears in his eyes. He does so because of the creature's suffering. As Deputy Harley begins to writhe in anguish as well, the guys, who are now in a panic, order Jeremy to set him free. Upon their return to the county, Jeremy's refusal to discuss the event with anyone causes Sheriff Doug to become frustrated, at which point he excuses himself. Jeremy tells Deputy Harley that she did not witness his actions, so he demonstrates for her by holding both of them together. He explains to Jesse that although everyone acts as though they are his buddy, they will not let him return home. Because of his rage, everything that could be broken within the room starts to shatter, and the light eventually goes out. Mr. Ripley has a conversation with Jeremy, during which he expresses to Jeremy his admiration for him and his desire to become his friend. Ripley extends his hand to shake Jeremy's hand, which Jeremy finds peculiar given that virtually everyone, including Jeremy's grandparents, avoids touching him. Ripley grabs his hand while he cries. Deputy Harley confides in Sheriff Doug that he is unable to look at a gun anymore because Jeremy's action makes him feel the agony of the deer that he shot. Soon after that, Sheriff Doug goes to see Jeremy in order to beg him for assistance with his sick wife, Emma, who is about to pass away. At the sheriff's residence, the caregiver expresses concern over the presence of Jeremy, but the sheriff reassures her that everything will be okay. Emma's thoughts and wishes are conveyed to Sheriff Doug by Jeremy. They include the fact that she wants him to be reunited with their son, that she wants to feel her lost but found wedding ring on her finger, and that she wants Sheriff Doug to reassure her that he will live without her. Once all of these things have been accomplished, Emma will be able to pass away. As she takes her last breath, a teary-eyed Sheriff Doug makes a solemn promise to grant her wishes. He consoles her with a kiss on the cheek and slips the ring onto her finger. Their son comes just in the nick of time, and Sheriff Doug hugs him at the front door as the two of them make amends. Jeremy and Lindsay spend their time together at the county fair. She suggests to him that, instead of looking, they can definitely ask the people who are observers to take a picture of them. Jeremy claims that everyone is asking if he should be held accountable for the death of Emma. He tells her that everyone believes they are not related to one another, despite the fact that there is a connection between all humans. They read each other's thoughts out loud while holding their fingers together. Lindsay apologizes for talking about how his father hurt him, and they continue to hold their fingers together. Despite the fact that Jeremy has asked her if she thinks he is ugly, Lindsay considers Jeremy's face to be the most attractive she has ever seen. They lean in close to one another and share a kiss. Lindsay's father, who had been watching them from the crowd, rushes forward and grabs Jeremy by the shirt. Jesse, who had been having a conversation with a group of people, stops what she was doing and comes to intervene. Lindsay's father insults Jeremy and calls him a thing, suggesting that Jesse should put him on a leash. He warns her that he will sue her, as well as the central home, and he takes his daughter along with him, while she apologizes over her shoulder to both of them. After suffering an emotional setback, Jeremy leaves the county fair and heads to the main house. He gathers his items at the residence and places them in the suitcase he brought with him before leaving the building. On his way out of the building, he pauses when he hears hollering and cheering coming from another area of the structure and goes inside to investigate. When he gets there, he finds John and the other bullies playing basketball, and he watches them while they play. After some time had passed, a young boy comes into the restroom to wash his face, and Jeremy turns his head to stare at him. John draws the youngster's attention to himself and then mocks Jeremy for watching the boy by calling him a faggot. He takes Jeremy's hat and then challenges him to a fight in order to get it back. Jeremy accepts the challenge. Jeremy responds to John's words with composure, telling him in front of the other boys that his stepfather had said the exact same thing to him when he was 12 years old, and his stepfather had taken the hat that belonged to John's biological father from him. His words were repeated back to him by Jeremy. John acts angry in order to conceal his surprise, and he threatens to murder Jeremy. The bullies drag Jeremy while making fun of him. John undresses Jeremy and then throws him into a puddle once they had finished. There is a lightning strike all of a sudden when John's pants begin to pull away from his waist, The other lads became terrified because their bracelets and earrings began to do the same thing. Except for John, the other guys are able to get back to their feet after collapsing as a result of the lightning strike. The others yell at Jeremy while they are under the impression that he had passed away. Once more, John wakes up, and this time, Mitch offers to assist him in escaping. Jeremy arrives at his grandparents' house after taking a little ride in a truck, which happened to be passing by. Jessie arrives not long after that and discovers him down in the basement. She expresses regret for the fact that all of his books were taken and assures him that she will transport him to a location where he will experience love and complete tranquility. Additionally, Mr. Ripley enters the room, and the two of them usher Jeremy out the door. At that location, Sheriff Doug and Deputy Harley show up at the same time, with their sirens blaring to take Jeremy into custody. Jessie is adamant that this is not the case, and she promises that this time around, she will treat Jeremy with the respect that he deserves. Mr. Ripley is convinced by her argument and advises Sheriff Doug to act as though he did not see anything. Doug is given the order to return to the county after a brief moment of hesitation on the part of Sheriff Doug. However, Deputy Harley raises objections, arguing that the sheriff is impeding the course of justice. Deputy Harley attempts to reach the office and report the current situation, but Doug seizes the opportunity and grabs his walkie-talkie before quickly tossing it into the distance, where it breaks apart in a loud crash. After becoming enraged, the deputy storms out to his vehicle and calls the office on his radio. Realizing this, Jeremy begins to flee into the fields, while everyone becomes alarmed and begin to chase after him. After a strenuous race, they stand and watch in utter helplessness as lightning and thunder begin to strike. Jeremy is struck by several electric jolts, and with each one, he rises higher and higher into the clouds until they can no longer see him. Miss Jessie smiles as she watches his vanishing form and then turns around. What exactly do you think just happened to Jeremy? Did he just get the freedom that he had always wanted? We sure hope he did, but that's going to bring us to the end of today's video. If you enjoyed it, please press the like button, and if you want to see more movie recaps like this one, then remember to subscribe to my channel. And until next time,